Mr. President, I beg to give notice that at the next sitting of the Senate, I will move the following motion. Be it resolved that the report of the Regulations Committee of the Senate on its deliberations on the Insurance Amendment of 20th Schedule Number 2 Regulations 2026, which was laid on the table of the Senate on the 10th day of July 2026, be approved. I apologize. Mr. President, I beg to give further notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion.
Mr. President, I ask for permission to speak from a seat other than
Permission granted.
Mr. President, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I'll move to introduce and have read the first time a bill shortly entitled Jamaica Consumer and Competition Act 2026. I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I'll move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the first reading of the bill. 2A. Mr. Presentation of bills.
No.
That's later on.
Okay.
Notice, Mr. President, I beg to give notice that the next meeting of the House, I will move.
Of the Senate.
It's actually the House written here.
Yes,
as a
I
mistake.
understand
Sorry. Of the Senate, I will move on behalf of the Leader of Government Business in the Senate, the Shipping Prevention of Garbage Pollution Regulations 2026 resolution. That's unusual. Whereas Section 457 of the Shipping Act, hereinafter referred to as the Act, provides that the Minister may take regulations for the purpose of giving effect to any international agreement or other international treaty instrument relating to shipping or the prevention of pollution of the marine environment to which Jamaica is a party. And whereas, Mr. President, Section 457 of the Act provides the regulations made thereunder shall be subject to affirmative resolution. And whereas, on the 29th of January 2026, the Minister made Shipping Prevention of Garbage Pollution Regulations 2026 for the purpose of giving effect to Annex 5 of the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships 1973 as modified by the Protocol of 1978 and the Protocol of 1997. Now, therefore, Mr. President, be it resolved that this Honourable Senate as follows. This resolution may be cited as the Shipping Prevention of Garbage Pollution Regulations 2026 resolution. And 2, the Shipping Prevention of Garbage Pollution Regulations 2026, which were laid on the table of the Senate on the 27th day of March 2026, are affirmed.
Questions and answers to questions? Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to sittings of the Senate. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the Senate first obtained.
Mr. President, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the first reading of a bill shortly entitled the Jamaica Consumer and Competition Authority Act 2026.
Members, the question is that the standing orders be suspended to allow the Minister to take the first reading of the bill. Those in favor? Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. President, I now move that a bill shortly entitled the Jamaica Consumer and Competition Authority Act 2026 be read a first time.
A bill shortly entitled the Jamaica Consumer and Competition Authority Act 2026 read a first time.
Minister? No?
Mr. President, I ask that the bill be, no? Not that I ask, Mr. President, but I beg to give notice of a second reading of the bill.
All right. So public business.
Mr. President, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier.
So the question is that the standing orders be suspended to enable the member to take the motion, notice of which she gave earlier. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. President, it's not my intention to delay the Senate. This is a very simple amendment regulations where we had the duplication of a class of insurance in one of the columns of the 20th schedule. Instead of accident insurance being set there twice, it should have been motor vehicle insurance and then accident insurance. My committee members had no objection to the amendment regulations. And with that, Mr. President, I now move that the motion, notice of which I gave earlier, be approved.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can never work with this chair.
Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, when the Regulations Committee of the Senate first met on this, I believe it was on June 4th, it was against the backdrop that the regulation had been tabled on March 27th, so at that point the notice period had expired. Despite that, the chair of the committee graciously allowed for discussion so that there would be transparent understanding of the regulation. And in summary, we on this side recognize that it's important to review the fee because the fee was last reviewed several years ago. Further, Ms. Aisha Wright of the Financial Regulations Division of the Ministry of Finance had actually told us that it took $749 million to supervise the insurance industry in a parliamentary sitting, but the FSC collects only $487 million in fees. So there is clearly a deficit that would have to be funded.
I have to raise a point of order because my colleague, Senator...
Hold a second. Just hold a second. Just have a seat. Let me hear what is it.
Unfortunately, Mr. President, the amendment bill that was before the committee was an amendment in relation to the duplication of a class in the schedule. The matter that my colleague is referring to, we have already in the Senate dealt with that matter through committee, and that report, Mr. President, was tabled in the Senate some weeks ago. So while I appreciate that she may have some concerns or may wish to indicate those her concerns, we've already had the opportunity to do that. So it's not relevant to this amendment regulations.
Very well.
Thank you.
All right, so be guided, Senator Anderson, in respect to the issue of relevance.
It's a good thing. I can independently think, Senator and Senator colleagues. So, thank you. With that guidance, Mr. President, I would just lay on the, in the conversation today that we were told in the Regulation Committee meeting yesterday that the industry continues to be engaged, and I trust that that is what is being done because we recognize that a significant increase in fees will reach towards the consumer. And there is a real concern there in terms of the level of increase because costs don't get absorbed by businesses, they get passed on to consumers. So I hope the dialogue is genuine and that it will actually continue so that we can look out for the best interests of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. Senator Golding-Campbell.
Mr. President, I now move that the motion, notice of which I gave earlier in respect of the Insurance Amendment of 20th Schedule Number 2 Regulations 2026 and the report tabled by the committee today be approved.
All right, so the question is that the motion, notice of which the member gave earlier, be approved. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Minister.
Mr. President, on the 27th day of March 2026, the Pensions, Superannuation Funds, and Retirement Schemes Registration, Licensing, and Reporting Amendment Regulations 2026 were laid on the table of the Senate and notice given for their affirmation. This morning, Mr. President, Senator Cavan Gale will speak on the motion from our side. Yes.
Senator Gale.
Thank you, President. President, I just thought it fitting, sir, that this is whilst we're dealing with the pension, superannuation funds and retirement scheme regulation, I just thought it fitting that, it's important for us as a parliament to speak about pension. And for me as I know my steps. President, let me first state that I'm in support of these regulations governing pension investment. And pension policies ultimately about protecting the dignity and the financial security and the independence of the Jamaican workers in retirement. And, I always say that every pension reform discussion must ask one question: will it improve the retirement outcome of the Jamaican workers? And, with longer life expectancy, rising healthcare costs, and the changing employment pattern, a strong pension system is very important. I always want to encourage workers to plan for their retirement. And I want to say for everybody in this parliament today, barring none, and I'm including you, Senator Tomlinson, as young as you feel that you are, plan for your retirement early. And it's something that is important because a lot of us get caught. A lot of us get caught by not planning for retirement. President, I want to use the opportunity to also commend the Pension Industry Association of Jamaica for its research, stakeholder engagement, and advocacy in advancing pension reform in Jamaica. Their work has helped to modernize Jamaica's pension framework. The regulations today features an increase in investment for private equity, moving from 5% to 7.5%, with a further 10% by April 2027. And this phased approach is both prudent and responsible. Some say it's risky, but it's an important venture in terms of investment in private equity. And I want to commend the government for moving towards this modernized approach in terms of pension. As at September 2025, Jamaica's pension industry managed approximately $847 billion in assets. Increasing this allocation to 7.5 could make more than $21 billion available to support Jamaica's businesses, infrastructure, and innovation. It is making more investment in pension. Pensions is a long-term investment. And, you know, there was a time decades ago when you would hear people saying, I want to throw my pension. I want to participate in a pension scheme. In those days, you had what was considered a defined benefit plan, where the employers guarantee the payout. And we would have moved away from that now to a more defined contribution plans, where a defined contribution plan really depends on the investment of the plan. And it really depends on the performance of the plan. And more employers today have gone to the defined contribution plan. The unfortunate thing is that you're not hearing within the labor force, where an employer wants to sponsor a plan. And you're not having this situation where in the past you would have had many pension plans, active pension plans in the workplace. That is far and in between, and that is kind of unfortunate, where we have moved the culture away from employer-sponsored plan, where employees can contribute. But, you know, the more we talk about these regulations, we have to talk about some of the things that are being promoted in what I call phase 2 of pension reform. One of the things that we have to do, President, is that we have to expand pension coverage. We have to expand pension coverage, particularly for workers in the informal sector. Even the domestic workers need to be contributing to some sort of a plan in planning for their retirement. Today, what we are doing is that we are increasing investment diversification whilst maintaining prudent safeguards. But we have to look further than that. One of the things that was referenced in the plan for phase 2 of the reform relates to pension portability. So workers retain their retirement savings when changing employers. And you move from one scheme to another. You have the opportunity to migrate your pension to another scheme, even though you change employer. And we have this situation nowadays. In the past, an employer will be part of a scheme because they are part of an employment for longevity. You no longer have that. You have where workers are now migrating from jobs to jobs. And so if they're part of an employer sponsored pension program, they're going to have to separate. Phase 2, that is being suggested, being recommended, speaks to portability. And we need to have that move towards phase 2 in terms of the reform to allow for that level of portability. Mr. President, the other thing is that the vesting period normally in pension schemes are 10 years, when you qualify for both the employer contribution and your own contribution. The thinking is that there has been amendments in trust deeds and plan rules to revise and amend the vesting period to 5 years. We must make that legislative to move it to the 5 years, where the employees can benefit more. And one of the other things is that, you know, you're part of a pension scheme. And being part of that pension scheme, you can only benefit the real benefit out of retirement. But we have seen situations where you have unique circumstances, where a worker needs access to funds, and there is not that availability or ability to draw down funds out of the pension scheme. But I'll give you an example. Suppose there's a situation where that worker develops a chronic disease and require some kind of financial support. They must be able to carve out a portion of their pension entitlement for that purpose and use. We have also seen situations where workers, no fault of their own, become disabled, permanently disabled, and they need some sort of assistance, and there is no financing. They weren't contributing to an insurance, but they were part of a pension, and they must be able to afford themselves that opportunity to have that drawdown of assistance based on their disability. So we believe that pensions are not merely financial instruments. They are pillars of social stability, economic resilience, and a better quality of life for generations to come. But one of the areas I want to seek to address for consideration is what you call the automatic pension enrollment. President, this is a system where employees who are not enrolled in an employer-sponsored pension plan are automatically enrolled in an approved retirement scheme by their employer, and contributions are deducted from their pay. So they have no formal employer-sponsored scheme, but they can identify a registered retirement scheme, have a discussion with their employer, and the employer decides that I am going to take your contribution and put that contribution forward to the retirement scheme. The only thing about that is that there has to be some safeguard, that once the deduction is made, the deduction is remitted to the desired end result. But international experience shows that automatically enrolling eligible employees while preserving their right to opt out, because they can opt out at any time, it significantly increases participation rates. And so, where you are not having an employer generosity in terms of providing a sponsored scheme, you should not limit the situation where if the employee decides that they have identified a registered retirement scheme, then the deductions can be made and they can contribute towards some sort of a savings. And I really want to encourage that type of consideration. Now, that proposal has already been received by the government. And I understand, sir, that there is the intention for a cabinet submission to be done, for that to be part of legislation. And I'm looking forward to that. I commend the government for that kind of approach also. President, you know, the other thing I want to raise is that we're having a very dynamic labor force. New entrants coming into the labor force and people exiting the labor force. And you have some employees that at a particular point in time of their working life, age 50, moving on to age 60, they have suggested that they have a kind of longevity, that they still want to participate in the labor force. They have the institutional knowledge. They have the capacity, both physically and mentally. And I was part of a joint select committee having deliberations on the elderly when the Ministry of Health indicated and made a strong recommendation for us to look at the retirement age to increase it because it allows for the institutional knowledge to continue in the workplace, but also for a longer period if the employee decides for continuity, because we're not forcing it on employees. Some may want to leave, but some has expressed the intention to continue to prepare themselves further for retirement. And so we must be able to give them that opportunity. And so I'm suggesting that in the very first instance, we start looking at the plan rules and the trust deeds and making those change on a voluntarily requested basis for continuity beyond what we now have as the regular pension age. President, whilst we're speaking on pension, there's another kind of employee support savings that came about in 1994 that we have not spoken about. And it's another kind of investment geared towards savings for retirement, the Employee Share Ownership Plan, a legislation that came to being in 1994. I look at it, and I think we would have had only 2 administrative kinds of amendments to it. One in 1999 and one maybe in 2002, administrative. In the 90s, it was taken up by some employers, and it has been active for those employers. But it has not been taken up as of late. You don't hear about it. But if we are seeking to modernize saving schemes towards retirement, we need to review that piece of legislation to make it more attractive and incentivize it, because it goes a long way. And these are legislations that we don't look back at. And if we're talking about the modernization of savings towards retirement, then I'm making the request today that we review and revise the Employee Share Ownership Plan to make it more modernized and to make it more encouraging and attractive for the level of flexibility. So these reforms will create a pension system that is modern, inclusive, and resilient, one that provides Jamaican workers with the dignity and financial security that they deserve in retirement. Planning for retirement is very important. And Mr. President, I'm of the firm view that a society that encourages pension participation and retirement savings is going to be a society that invests not only in its future prosperity, but also in the dignity, independence, and security of its people. I want to, again, support the intentions and objectives of these regulations and encourage that as a society we continue to speak about pension reform and pension planning. May it please you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Gale. Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that I can start by agreeing with what colleague Senator just said, that the intention of pension is to guarantee the dignity for Jamaicans and ensure social stability for them in their retirement years. And not starting and ending there. I think, though, that in assessing how we are doing as policymakers, we have to determine whether or not the policies that we are laying are creating the outcome that we desire. And that's where I think there's some divergence. So let us look realistically at the pension industry. And using the data from the FSC as at December 31st, I do agree that the pension portfolio standing was 861 billion at that time, which is a mere 50 billion growth over the prior year, with the majority of those funds being in superannuation funds, 755 billion, and only 11% being in retirement schemes. And I'll soon tell you why that's important. There are 820 pension plans, only one more than the year before, and only 358 of those are active. So we have a lot of pension plans, but they're not necessarily active. And of the active plans, there are 343 superannuation, which would follow the format that was described by Senator Gale, and 15 retirement schemes. And why retirement schemes and the focus on them is important now is that he laid the case that people are not staying employed at one place for very, very long. And therefore, for them to be encouraged to be a part of Jamaicans who are saving towards their retirement, the retirement scheme option is much more sensible because it allows them to carry it when they go. And then on the employer side, it's actually just too expensive to set up a superannuation fund now. So with that, we wonder how many Jamaicans, therefore, are saving towards their retirement. And I think if we stop and think about it and look at the number, we'd be shocked to know it's really 174,000 Jamaicans. That's it. 174,000, up only about 9,000 from the year before. So I don't think as we stand up here, as we stand up here debating the regulation, we can only focus on what we are saying, but we have to say, is it working? Is it getting the kind of behavior that we want to see occurring? So that's 12%. I think I heard the question being asked, what percentage of the working population is only 12%. And so what does that mean now? The Jamaicans are either choosing not to save or they can't afford to save towards their retirement. And what does that mean? It means in the long term, the government will be responsible for creating that social safety network that will be retired. The pension funds are managed by a couple of different entities, securities dealers, life insurance companies, and credit unions. And in the FSC report of December 2025, they said that amidst a lower policy rate at 5.75%, there are heightened adverse risks towards inflation and real GDP that are affecting pension fund performance. Yeah. So trustees are being told to, look at your oversight, ensure that portfolios are being rebalanced to make sure that the return actually beats inflation and creates a real growth in pension fund savings for the pensioners. Yeah. So in examining today what the regulation is asking for, I had to look to see what was it really doing. Is it going to impact those outcomes of having more persons want to join a retirement scheme, having more persons wanting to save towards a retirement? And Mr. President, I'm not sure it does that. So what is it asking for? The first thing it's asking for is a revision to the investment manager's fee. So the annual charge of 0.1% is not changing, but in looking at that 0.1%, I think there was a missed opportunity as we re-examine the regulation. Because I think we should have considered a review period built into it so that we look at what it is that we are charging and with what frequency we're going to be reviewing the rate. And I also think there was a missed opportunity in looking at the structure because we could have done one of two things, either include a cap, a tiered structure, or a decline in marginal rate. So what we have by this 0.1% is really an uncapped regulatory levy. And no matter how we say it, that's the reality of how it actually operates. So if we think about the assets under management in the pension industry of 861 billion, then we're saying that is 861 million in fees that will be collected, which is a $50 million increase over the prior year. And we have to say, is it justifiable that just because there's an increase in the size of the portfolio, there should be a regulatory cost increase of that magnitude? And the Financial Services Commission belongs to the International Organization of Securities Commission, IOSCO, I always pronounce it wrong, to which the FSC is a signatory. And it provides under its cost of compliance principle that a regulator, when formulating policy, really should have regard for whether the cost of compliance is in keeping with the regulation? And, Mr. President, I think the answer is no, because the current structure is operating more like an ad valorem tax on pension asset accumulation rather than a pure cost recovery. So that's what, let me put it into context now and simplify it. So as pension assets grow because of contributions and investment returns, the FSC fee revenue automatically increases, even if the number of regulated entities and the supervised resources remain broadly unchanged. So it's collecting more, even if there's no more work substantively to be done. So who will the fee impact? That fee would more than likely impact the operating costs of pension fund management, with institutions, just because of their size and doing a good job in giving good returns to pension funds, that are now penalized because they are growing. But most importantly, depending on the contractual arrangements that they do have and depending on how they distribute costs, those costs are automatically going to flow down to the investment management fees and therefore to the pension beneficiaries. And so I think that point cannot be lost on us, because whereas the pension fund performance will increase, if they're paying more fees, then they're going to pass on those fees. I keep repeating that fees don't disappear and companies don't just absorb fees. Fees actually pass on to the end user, which in this case would be the pensioners. So I think that we really have to, at any other review point that we are looking back at the regulation, we really should consider an appropriate model, such as either a fixed base license fee plus a lower assets under management kind of supervisory charge, or a tiered assets under management fee arrangement with a percentage applied declining as the assets increase. Of course, with the safeguard that the regulator will collect a minimum fee. The second concern, Mr. President, is around the whole concept of double charge, which of course would make the charge to the pensioners and what they actually accumulate each year that they invest be reduced. Because the industry, at this point, I don't think has confirmation that the assets under management fee applies only to pension assets directly managed by the investment manager. And I'm sorry Senator Duncan is not here, because I'm sure he would agree that this is necessary to prevent double charging. Because pension fund assets are invested, again, in the same instruments that the financial sector has to offer. So they are invested back in pool funds, collective investment schemes, or unit trusts, right? And so if it's not clear how the charge is calculated on assets under management, it is potential that the same pension fund could actually pay the charge twice. And the double charging will ultimately impact the same pensioners through expenses of the pension fund to which they belong. So some clarity is needed on the whole double charge impact and double charge potential. And then I think, to a less fundamental point, but a point nonetheless, there are fees articulated in this amendment, a $2,000 alteration fee and a $5,000 fee for amendments of the constitutive documents. And I think some clarity is needed on whether or not each alteration is going to require this fee, because simple things like changes in directors and officers or an address could constitute an alteration. So I think we really have to look at that. So what's the bottom line of my contribution today, Mr. President? Not enough Jamaicans are planning for their retirement. To think 174,000, I don't know if it's not shocking to anybody else, but it's really shocking to me, because I think of, one, the level of outcry from pensions and older people in society, just that they can't make ends meet. And therefore, if we don't do something now, it's going to be social programs in the years to come, and we do have an aging population. The quality of living of our seniors must be examined, and we have to determine whether or not there are real tangible things that we can do now as we plan for the future. If Jamaicans don't invest, the government will actually have to support more. Fees don't get absorbed by companies, Mr. President. I can't say it enough. Oversight is essential, but we have to ensure that we're not overcharging for the oversight. And really, against the backdrop of the asset tax, the increase in fees to securities dealers, the increase in the insurance fees we just spoke about, this now increase in the pension fee, for me, begs the question, are we designing these fees to simply recover for the cost of regulation, which we all agree is important, or are we creating an additional revenue stream as seen with a 500 million withdrawal from the FSC to the government coffers that just really occurred? So, Mr. President, I think we have some real things. It actually, it could be. We really have to think about the policies that we are setting by the decisions that we make and the future of Jamaica that we're designing by the decisions that we make. And I put it to you, at the end of the day, these decisions will impact the people of Jamaica.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. Senator Marlon Morgan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to signal support for the amendments to the regulations. You know, Mr. President, if you were to canvass any environmentalists, they will observe that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. They would go on, however, to make the point that the second best time so to do is now. In like manner, and I'm speaking as a person in the early 40s, the best time for someone like myself to have made provisions vis-a-vis pension would have been 20 years ago. But to the extent that the horse has bolted and that boat had been missed, the second best time so to do would be now. I start there, Mr. President, to join the call made by my colleague Senator Gale, that it is of critical importance for us as a country to foster a culture of making provision for retirement. Pensions are a primary and reliable and sustainable mechanism that would enable a senior on attaining the age of retirement to better navigate their retirement years and enjoy a level of earnings that would allow them to maintain, albeit at nominally lower inflows to them in terms of income, but to maintain a particular standard of living. That's a good thing, it is an ideal, and it is something we must continue to foster, Mr. President, and encourage. One of the biggest humbugs to our seniors is the sheer reality of cost of living. And if you think about it, in as much as inflation is a tax on consumers, cost of living, inflation, impairs pensioners. And it is for that reason, Mr. President, why I am among those who welcome our independent central bank's modus in terms of inflation targeting. And that has been yielding dividends, Mr. President, in that inflation has been fairly stable in this country within the band of the targeted 4 to 6%. And that means that when juxtaposed with times past, when compared to periods past, where inflation would have been running, the erosion of people's purchasing power would have been running in double digits. Those days are not with us, because inflation is within the targeted band, and it has been so for several years, Mr. President, and we welcome that. Mr. President, we know that notwithstanding best efforts as it relates to inflation targeting, we do have upward movement in consumer prices. Indeed, Jamaica, like many other small island developing states, is exposed to the vagaries of global market conditions, not least what happens in relation to the oil prices and what happens in relation to commodity prices, as we saw coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, where we had dislocation in the shipping and logistics sector that pushed commodity prices, for example, and also the price of just shipping northward. What is important, while those realities cannot be obviated, Mr. President, is to devise and effect interventions that will seek to mitigate the impact, particularly on our seniors. And it is for that reason why I am among those, Mr. President, who welcome the upward adjustment over time in our old age pension, our NIS pension, and of course the instituting, Mr. President, of a social pension where persons aged 75 and older who did not make provisions for pension in their younger years and are now at an age where they're impoverished, as it were, and can hardly make ends meet. They have a caring and responsive government that has stepped in and has stood in the gap and facilitated them as it relates to a social pension, Mr. President, which must be welcomed if you have a social conscience. Mr. President, the undertaking has been given by no less a person than the Prime Minister as it relates to an income tax threshold for our seniors. And I have interfaced with many a senior, with many a pensioner who welcome the announcement that was made that persons aged 65 and older, to the extent that their income from all sources is 6 million or less, would pay, Mr. President, no income tax. So that's an abolition of income tax to pensioners. Let's not lose sight, even while a member opposite babbles, Mr. President, let's not lose sight of what that means in real terms. Let's not lose sight of that. What that means, Mr. President, is that income relief would leave more disposable income in the pockets of persons. If you are not paying income tax on your income, you would have more resources available to attend to your key business. For example, going to the supermarket, insuring your car, purchasing fuel for your car, you name it. All the incidentals and all the operating expenses that a person and a household will have to endure, you are able to better meet those obligations because you would have been granted and benefited from that income tax relief. And I am delighted that the government has committed to abolish income tax to pensioners to the extent that their income from all sources is 6 million or less. That is welcomed, Mr. President. You know, one of the things we must never lose sight of, Mr. President, is the propensity that the members opposite have to argue positions as it suits them and as is expedient in the moment. It's something that the Jamaican people should observe because it is something the opposition does time and again. What am I referring to here? The government has had reason, the consolidated fund that is, to tap a public body such as the Financial Services Commission to the tune of 500 million Jamaican dollars to provide, in part, budgetary support to underwrite and assist the operations of government. And in the lower house, just a week ago, you had the opposition spokesperson on finance lamenting that FSC drawdown. Just now, you heard the member opposite, Senator Anderson, lamenting the regulatory fees that will be accruing to the FSC on account of the regulations before us just now. You can't have it both ways, Mr. President. It is speaking out of two sides of the mouth. Because for us, the regulatory fees help to capitalize the FSC. So if you are lamenting that $500 million drawdown, why would you turn around in the same breath to lament equally, lament prospective flows to the FSC? Yes? We capitalize public bodies underwrite their cost of operations. But let us understand one thing, Mr. President, in this debate, and make no mistake. Public bodies undertake the business of the people of Jamaica. The consolidated fund and the finances of the government, Mr. President, underwrite the delivery of services to the people of Jamaica. So any money that is drawn down, whether from the NHD or the FSC or HART NSTA, are funds that are utilized to take care of the business of the people of Jamaica, Mr. President. And on this side, we are unapologetic in that regard. Absolutely unapologetic. Because that drawdown from the FSC went into providing support to the consolidated fund, which is the fund from whence government's programs are funded. And that is undeniable, Mr. President. So you cannot on the one hand and in one breath lament the $500 million drawdown and then turn around and say, but wait, too much money is going to the FSC because of this regime vis-a-vis regulatory fees as per the pension funds regulations before us. You can't have it both ways. Another point to observe, Mr. President, and this is a rebuttal again to Senator Anderson's observation just now. She made mention of what is happening where pension funds are concerned. If you look at what is happening with pension funds in a superficial and nominal way, Mr. President, and do not go further by going beneath the surface and looking what is happening, you will mislead others and you yourself will be misled. What am I getting at, Mr. President? You cannot take the sheer number of public funds over which fund managers exercise superintendence.
Morgan, just hold on 1 second for me. No, I want to stop you. Yes, and I'm doing that now. All right. So Senator Brown and Senator Tomlinson. I don't know why I always call you Robinson, but yes, Senator Tomlinson. All right, so like we have the blue book in your hand, Senator Tomlinson. You can SO 40 for me, please. All right, good. So I'm having a challenge. I have to hear what is being said. So please, all right. So don't let me have to go to 40 and then go to another standing order subsequently. All right?
I sympathize
Continue, Senator
with
Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do sympathize with you as you seek to superintend the Senate and manage the rabble-rousers, a.k.a. the penny section. Mr. President, if you are to simply look at data from the Financial Services Commission as it relates to the number of pension funds being managed by fund managers, you would be doing something that is very superficial. The truth of the matter is that on the government side, for example, there's a reason why you would have had pension funds going south. A number of public bodies, Mr. President, well, first of all, the number of public bodies compared to 3 or 4 years ago that we have had operating in this country have gone south. In our own ministry, the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, we have had consolidation in our own sphere. The HART NSTA Trust, for example, operated previously as the HART NTA Trust. It was separate and apart from the then National Youth Service and as many may recall, Mr. President, was separate and apart from the Jamaica Foundation for Lifelong Learning. We have since had a consolidation of HEART, JFLL, and NYS into one entity, which is now the HEART NSTA Trust. Similarly, the CPFSA, the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, is now an amalgamation of a couple other bodies. So it's the CDA and the OCR, the Office of the Children's Registry, which have since been consolidated to provide that critical service and deliver on the mandate of the Child Care and Protection Act. So the CPFSA has had consolidation. The takeaway point here, Mr. President, is that the number of public bodies that we have had in this country, in the order of 200 at one point, has come considerably south. So to just nominally and superficially look at what is happening with respect to pension funds and say we're moving in the wrong direction is indeed a nominal, a superficial, and an inaccurate way of looking at the matter before us, Mr. President. So, in closing, Mr. President, the move that has been made in terms of the amendments to the regulation to move to 7.5 in the 2026-2027 financial year, and thereafter, meaning the 2027-28 fiscal year and beyond, up to 10% is welcomed because, as you can appreciate, it will free up more resources to channel into, not least, the productive sector and to other economic activity. And what I like with this incremental move, Mr. President, is that the government is moving in a direction to free up capital, but at the same time preserving and honoring prudential considerations. So we're not being reckless. We're not doing any ill-advised or run-with-it kind of approach. We are not going back to a period from whence we have come, which is why the FSC was established in the first place to correct those missteps of the mid to late 1990s when Omar Davies and the PNP government of which he was a part ruined this country, Mr. President. So with those few observations, Mr. President, I commend these amendments to the regulations to senators and trust that our industry, I trust, Mr. President, that industry will be utilizing the room to maneuver that is now being afforded by way of the upward adjustment from 5% to 7.5 in the first instance and from 7.5 to 10% thereafter. And I just close out by encouraging more of my Jamaican brothers and sisters to make provision for their retirement year. You may not be considering 30 or 40 years down the line in the here and now, but as we know, pension provide important social and financial protection, and I commend it to my Jamaican brothers and sisters. May it please you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Morgan. Senator Small Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak briefly in general support of the regulations. I mean, I don't think the direction can be argued with, and ultimately, I think elements of the work being done here strike to the heart of the work that we should do to affect ordinary Jamaicans and to help them to secure a future of dignity for themselves. Mr. President, there is, however, a right to express concern with the limited level of participation of our citizens in pension plans. The truth is that low participation in saving for retirement ultimately becomes like a cancer on the society. As people getting to retirement with no ability to take care of themselves ultimately become some version of a burden on the state and the generation or generations that follow them. Right? So it's something that we should be concerned about. So I mean, I don't think it's something that we should choose to seek to explain or, you know, to jumble in numbers, the reasons for why there isn't a growth in the number of plans or there is a reduction in the number of plans. The number of people, as quoted by my senator colleague Anderson, 174,000 is the number, and that number should concern everyone. Let's not get, you know, conflated around the number of plans and so on as an explanation. In any case, to get to the meat of my submission here today, I want to recognize what some elements of this reform means for ordinary Jamaicans. You know, with respect to increasing the limits by allowing for a broader range of eligible or assets to be invested in by pension funds, it creates diversification in the portfolios that our ultimate pensioners are investing in. And that's better, ultimately. There is the opportunity for stronger returns, better resilience, less concentration. If you look at how pension funds are invested in Jamaica, there are large concentrations. Most of the largest asset class is actually government of Jamaica debt. So this move will allow for greater diversification over time, and I think that matters directly for the workers and ultimately the retirees who are saving in these funds. And it matters, Mr. President, for the wider country, potentially. As articulated by Senator Anderson, billions of dollars are vested in these funds. And I said it in this House before when we were debating on the fiscal debates, that there are tremendous resources here resident in Jamaica waiting to be mobilized to invest in opportunities in this country, but constrained by the state of regulations, the state of laws, many of which are vestiges of a very different Jamaica. So, you know, these are elements of the changes here will allow for greater investments potentially by pension funds in the real economy, in housing, in infrastructure, energy, productive businesses, other long-term projects. You know, those benefits can extend beyond just financial returns, but ultimately potentially to jobs, right, to improve services, to stronger communities, and more sustained economic growth. That's why, I mean, I unreservedly support directionally where we're going with elements of these regulations. The increasing the limit in private assets from 5% to 7.5 and ultimately to 10, therefore, is welcome.
Senator Morgan. Please, yes, but you got your opportunity and you made your point. So what goes for the goose will go for the gander, all right?
Mr. President, I have no qualms with supporting progress. Right? I have no qualms with supporting progress, but I'm surprised that I am being lambasted for supporting some progress. Right? So, yeah, Mr. President, it's the move that I just mentioned begins to remove this long-standing restriction and restraint on the ability of pension funds to invest more in Jamaica and productive economic activity. And I wish to acknowledge, Mr. President, that these changes aren't happening in a vacuum. There has been sustained advocacy and technical engagement from the Pension Industry Association of Jamaica, that was mentioned earlier, I want to commend them. And the Jamaica Securities Dealers Association, over many years, and other participants in the financial services sector who have consistently encouraged for more modern, flexible, and risk-sensitive pension investment frameworks. So, Mr. President, the reform, I think, is especially timely. Jamaica, Mr. President, is at a point where we're speaking about rebuilding and expanding critical infrastructure, increasing the supply of housing, strengthening our energy resilience, and financing other long-term priorities. And, you know, Mr. President, I would have said here before that we need to create a framework where domestic capital can participate in this rebuilding and recovery and the creation of more capacity for resilience in our economy. And I'm happy now that the government has recognized that we need to move in this direction and has said that this is the primary objective of the reforms. However, Mr. President, you know, while pension funds and they manage substantial pools of capital should be well placed to participate in these opportunities, the amendment to increase the amount that pension funds can invest in private assets does not by itself change the way these assets are treated, and I'll explain. Right? And it does not by itself actually ensure that investments are going to be channeled in this direction. So there's an opportunity, Mr. President, for the government to be even more imaginative. You know, a pension fund investment in a well-structured infrastructure or rebuilding project, for example, is still going to be placed in the same broad category as other private investments. So in other words, it's going to be placed in the same category as a private equity investment in a startup company looking to push some innovation. Those are two very different categories of risk. So you talk about creating a framework where pension fund assets can be channeled appropriately into the real economy. But there hasn't been any distinction with respect to the limits associated with the kinds of investments that better characterize what pension funds should be focused on and others. So in other words, the category of private assets appears to be a bit too broad. So while the limit increases the capacity generally, it doesn't by itself necessarily create all the flexibility that the pension fund may need to participate consistently and meaningfully in Jamaica's economy and ultimately the development agenda. And therefore, I commit, Mr. President, to this House that further reform needs to be contemplated and may well be necessary. Mr. President, I think the next step in this process should be developing a more practical and risk-aware framework that distinguishes between different categories of private assets, right, and allows for pension funds to access opportunities according to their actual characteristics and risk, rather than treating them all broadly in the same way. That would be my constructive feedback to the government. Additionally, Mr. President, I must tell you that clear regulatory guidance around this is going to be important. Trustees and investment managers should have confidence as to how these kinds of assets, these infrastructure projects, project financing investments that may be a bit new to the space, are to be accessed, how they're to be valued, how they're to be monitored, etc. Because without that kind of clarity, you may find that the pension funds have the ability to invest in these things, but they remain cautious. The limit is there, but it is never used. Mr. President, we should also recognize that this amendment does not at all address the long outstanding second phase of pension reform, which was mentioned on that side. Just mentioned. And what wasn't mentioned is that this thing has been going on for almost 2 decades, right, without progress forward. And Mr. President, I will say that critical elements of ensuring accessibility, ensuring consistency in relation to pension coverage, adequacy, portability that was mentioned, governance, and a wider investment framework are contained in that reform. So if we are concerned about the level of participation, and everybody should be, if we are responsible citizens and policymakers, then why haven't we taken the tangible steps to advance part 2 of the reform? The broader reform agenda has been outstanding for far too long, Mr. President. So this reform, while it is welcome, appears tactical. It appears to be appealing to a present-day need, the need for greater participation in the economy. Right? And I'll take it, but I would commit to the government to focus as well on the structural, the longer-term underpinnings of the pension system that will allow greater participation and really safeguard our citizens into the future. Mr. President, you know, the benefits of doing this will go well beyond the financial sector, the pension funds themselves. I seem to be rousing a lot of discussion in the House, Mr. President. Greater participation can help finance infrastructure and housing, etc. That's great. But as I said, we can't lose the broader, more important principle that it is for the people who participate. So, Mr. President, I welcome the step forward, the incremental step forward with respect to the changes here in relation to the limit. My other colleague has spoken to another element of the change that gives us pause on this side. But notwithstanding that fact, this signals that we're moving in the right direction. And I would encourage us to get a little bit more granular through continued collaboration with those who have advocated for this for years. And I'd also encourage us to look broader at the more holistic reform that's necessary to safeguard or to help to safeguard the future of the people of this country. If it pleases you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Small Ferguson. And that was a good presentation, Senator Small Ferguson. Well balanced and constructive. Yeah, with recommendations that come, yes. Senator. All right, I wish for you to be quiet on this. Senator Brown.
Thank you, President. President, when I saw the agenda today, I said, well, you know, I'll be able to come to the Senate and then leave quickly and go over to the Holy Trinity Cathedral for the funeral of Dr. Agri Irons. But then I realized this funeral started at 10 o'clock, so I could just watch some of it online. I didn't expect to be speaking in this debate. I didn't expect to, but I'm going to, because I can't go to the funeral again. So, President, I'm pleased that the issue of pension is being discussed in the Senate today. I'd have hoped that we would leave in here today saying both sides of the Senate concur on the need for pension reform as well as in support of the amendments to the regulations. I'm disappointed. One speaker from that side spoiled the party. there's some things on which both sides of the divide can find common grounds. This is one of them. This is one of them. And let me say, ditto to everything that Senator Cavan-Gill said. If from this sitting, the headlines become senators, trade union colleagues, support call for workers to invest in pension scheme, that would be a good thing. But it's not just Senator Gill from the BIT and Lambert Brown from the UAW. It is all the senators saying to the Jamaican people, we need to look out for old age. We need to prepare for old age. Because I can tell you, Senator Morgan, it does come around.
Yes.
Just look at me. It does come around. So, it is clear to me that the pensions is such an important thing if our country's stability is going to be maintained. Because without money to invest, long term and to transform the country, it's going to be poverty. And that is why a couple of years ago, I moved a resolution in this. I tabled a resolution about pension and about saving. Unfortunately, it fell off the other paper, and we never debated it. Today is a good opportunity to raise and re-raise some of those issues. Senator Gill, people like Hugh Lawson Shearer, Alexander Bustamante, Michael Manley, Carlisle Dunkley, Upton Cavan, the trade unionists of the past were champions of pension schemes. And most of the workplaces came to have pensions because the trade unions in our collective bargaining agreements had placed the issue of pension. A lot of it against the employer's wishes. So one of the strongest pension scheme in the country today is the cable and wireless pension scheme. There was a time, Senator Hill, when we would deal with that because that's still active. There was a time, Senator Hill, when cable and wireless had thousands of workers employed to them. That scheme is, cable and wireless probably have less than 500 employees today. But that pension scheme, built over the years, is probably one of the strongest pension schemes in the country. You want to give you an hint of one of their investment? Just up where Not So the Express is in New Kingston. That property there, which I just use for parking, and which bring in a whole pile of money for them, is part of a long-term investment. I'll tell you something about parking, Minister, because I think it's important. I've had to visit your hospital, Senator Thompson, Spanish Town, and I look and say, where do people park? And they not to go to some other hospital somewhere. And I realized that in our hospitals, there's no parking. In fact, at KPH now, doctors are parking out on the road. And so, investment in parking may very well be a lucrative source of income. And so, consistent with what Senator Ferguson said, opportunities do exist. And regulations that may limit it is what we need to address. So I'm proud of the role the trade unions have played. And as the workforce shrink from collective bargaining arrangement to more individualistic arrangement, we see the danger of contract work. Because contract work, one reason why they brought in contract work is to get around things like pension. And the people who get into contract work see it as a 6 months, a 3-year maximum, and don't understand that there's going to be a long-term life. And so things like the individual retirement scheme becomes important. So from this Senate today, let the call go to all Jamaican workers, to young people, of the importance of saving. Saving for a rainy day, saving for old time day, because old time day do come. Minister of Education, I grew up in an era where they had something called penny bank. And I grew up in an era where the National Savings Commission, penny bank, penny bank. So maybe, Minister, within the education system, we need to revisit the financial literacy. Is, if you want to call it big word, I like those big words, but the concept of getting our kids from kindergarten, from primary school, from prep school, to start the habit of saving. Because if they start it there, it becomes easier as they grow further. So it is important that we pension in the old way may not be around. But if we look forward and encourage our kids, and Senator, you know all us, I know of this habit, can't talk too loud for the parents here, to try and give my grandchildren, 2-year-old, 5-year-old, and so forth, to give them some, and to say to their parents, get a bank account for them so I can put some things in it and encourage them as they grow older to save. I don't want them to be as poor as I am. I want them to be wealthy. And that comes from learning the idea. You know I'm not doing that. I'm allowing him to talk. He wants more time. So that, no, I can't wrap up while he's there. So I want to make it clear that saving is so important that if we get back to encouraging the children and showing workers, because it's not an easy struggle. Senator Gill will tell you, when you go to the sugar workers, for example, and you negotiate for sugar workers, and you tell them that we want to get a pension scheme or an insurance scheme, they tell you they want the money now. And I can't fault them because things tough now. But we have to encourage people to see long term and to understand that a decade from now is not as long as you think. And having lived through many decades, I realize that decades do come and pass. So I want to encourage from this floor for people out there listening to take into account what Senator Gale said. Take into account what all the other speakers, except Senator Morgan, and to see that we can all concur, we can all agree, we can all support the need for saving. And then I can't end without saying that one thing I've learned is that government commitments are too slow in materializing. I'm talking about governments in general. Senator Ferguson spoke about 2 decades. Shoot, it's longer than that. We have been talking about government pension and that the workers must contribute, and thankfully, the unions have encouraged our members in the public sector, Senator Gale, to contribute. But the government made a commitment that they too will contribute to the pension scheme in the I hope so. But essentially, the government is supposed to contribute. But the government said, well, we will do so when certain things happen. And those things seem never likely to happen. So the type of pension scheme on the phase 2 we're looking forward to is not there. And President, as I said, this morning I thought to myself and said, you know, Senator Brown, the cutting off of microphones has happened. The guy is gone from the 32 Parliament. When Parliaments cut off speakers, it doesn't silence them.
All right, Senator,
It doesn't silence them. It makes the issue bigger. So that, and this matter,
Senator Brown, you know, no, but Senator Brown, hold on, man. Just take it easy, man. Yes, please. Yes, man, but the road that you want to go down, we don't need, you know that you started off well by saying that, no, some of you want to go down a road and I'm not going to facilitate that this morning. All right? So please, all right?
This resolution is limited to 2 items. But you have allowed the discussion to go wider. You did. You allowed the discussion to go wider. And that's good. That's part of the democracy. As against when we raise an issue and people get up on points of order to try and limit what can be said. So that when we engage in robust discussion, especially on issues on which we can agree, there's going to be dissent. There's going to be disagreement. I had to say to somebody recently, I'm going to outsource all my speeches in the Senate to them so that they can write what they want me to say, because they want to hear what they want to hear. So as I close, I thank you for allowing the discussion not to be limited to these 2 points, but to allow the robust call of the entire Senate, bar one, for people to save and to invest so our country can be rich and prosperous. And on that, Mr. President, you could cut my mic, because silence will not follow. May it please you.
You know, what is interesting, Senator Brown, is that when you made the comment where you then highlighted to exclude one, you have no cause everybody on PBC to go back and look for that one. Right? So, yes. All right, great. So, Senator Hill, you can close now, sir.
Don't need it. Mr. President, thank you for the assessment, and thank you for the submissions by my colleagues from both sides. And I heard the compliment you gave when you did. If I were to make a précis of what I heard from across the way, it would be like this. Yes, we agree with you, but we want some more. Now that's about what? 10 seconds? Yes. But having said that, only in half jest, I'd like to say the following as we close. The Act, what we're really looking at is really the part of it about the fees. I don't know if anybody read it and recognized that. And since that's what we're looking at, I'll start there. Shortly, briefly, the fees for the FSC have not been raised since 2008. In the last 2 years, Senator Anderson, they actually have made losses for 2 consecutive years because the fees haven't been changed. So although the increase in the asset classes would suggest an increase in fees, and it very well must have, the end result is that for the past 2 years they made a loss. So it was time to make that change. On the other issue, you notice I said nothing when you guys were speaking? Not a word. So the other issue about the money that is being taken from the pension fund, Senator Tomlinson, the money that is being talked about taken from the pension fund, the PBMA makes allowance for that. It's not just the pension fund. The PBMA that came here in this upper house as well to become law allows that. So I won't even address that. We'll leave that alone because that's what has happened. What I do want to address is something that really was addressed very properly by my colleague, Senator Cavan-Gale. The issue of, well, let me say what Melissa has brought home to us very clearly is that we do not have enough savings to take care of certainly not a Category 5 hurricane. And in that assessment as we're going through, you find that we don't have enough savings to take care of a number of things. But the Most Honorable Andrew Holness has addressed this. He's made it very clear that we're going to review the pension business. Minister Favour Williams sat in this front row and has already started the process to review that because we have to review the whole pension business. It's a major source of funding in well-developed countries. So I'm grateful to see where the expansion is going, and that expansion is not just to get in more money, but it's also expanding the quality of assets that the pension funds will be able to invest in. That's good because remember now, the pension business is really looking after some of the risks in life. And the pension money that is going to come in from these adjustments and will continue, as Senator Anderson referred to, once you put it in, it tends to grow. So we are now going to expand the places that pension funds can invest in because sometimes it's much too limited. It should not, Senator Small Ferguson mentioned the volume of that money in government paper. Well, a great volume of that money should be in private investment. But I want to say something else. I'm from the private sector. I heard Senator Small Ferguson speak, and even other senators spoke about it. I want, every time we speak about pension stuff and anything the government does, you will always hear me refer to the private sector. The private sector is the engine of economic growth. So from this microphone, I'm asking the members, the associations in the private sector, the PSOJ, the JMEA, the JCC, the Securities Association, the Bankers Association, all of them must know they can together encourage more of their people and more of people in the private sector that is not theirs to save more. And I would hope that you don't only say yes to that. We're from the same sector. It has to be done. We don't do it enough. We lend people money and we never say, hey, what about your employees? Are they in pension funds? Here are pension funds you should be looking at. We don't do it. I know that we don't do it, so I'm not asking. We need to do it. So I'm asking the private sector to join in this instance with Senator Gale, and Senator Lambert Brown to say more people need to get into pension funds, and the private sector must play a leading role in that, even as the government makes the adjustment. Mr. President, I now move that the motion, notice of which was given on the 27th day of March 2026, be approved, if it pleases you.
So the question is, Senator Brown, the question is that the motion, notice of which was given on the 27th of March 2026, be approved. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Thank you, members. And yes, as you would have noticed, for those who would have been in the Standing Orders Committee this morning, as well as during the sitting of the Senate today, that Ms. Lowe was not sitting in either place, that she's currently off for a couple of weeks, Ms. Lowe, yes, the clerk. And so in the interim, Mr. Cowan, who is seated here, will be the acting clerk to the Senate. All right? Whilst Ms. Lowe is off. And so, with that, Minister.
Mr. President, it's not expected that we'll do any more business today, so we ask that the Senate stand adjourned for a date to be set.
The question is that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be set. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The Senate is now adjourned. Thank you.
First Broadcast Museum is completely online. The PBCJ Audio Visual Library AVL website houses a curated collection of exhibits ranging from our island nation's greatest tragedies to our proudest triumphs. Explore rare video footage, the evolution of archival equipment, and deep dives into the lives and times of key figures and institutions in Jamaica's storied history. It's a treasure trove for the curious and nostalgic alike. Soon, you will be able to listen to the exhibits as we continue our commitment to enhancing accessibility features. No walls, no boundaries, only rich Jamaican history curated specifically for you, accessible anytime, anywhere, any place. Scan the QR code or visit library@pbcj.com to experience history at your fingertips.
Greet the Sabbath day with bliss and an open heart. Join the People's Station for the Andrews Memorial Seventh-day Adventist Church service every Saturday at 9 a.m. on PBCJ.
Trust in you through the storm, stand through the rain, oh, through every single heartache. Oh, it hurts to let go, but it hurts more to stay. I'm moving on, I'm moving on. I got grace and mercy strong in my seasons of pain. One thing never wavered, one thing never changed, even forevermore. My help, but she'll do it again for you. She'll do it again. The glory, you get the glory, Father, you get the praise. I never would have made it. Yeah, I would have lost my mind. Goes to start.
What can a little germs do?
Pink eye running belly, even flu. Germs can make them happen to you.
Put germs on our manners with these. Cover your mouth when you cough and sneeze. Always wash your hand with water and soap. Keep dirty hands from your eyes and your nose and your mouth. You don't want to be sick, take care. Practice every day, no germs round here. A message from the Ministry of Health.
From seed to sale, Jamaica's future grows through innovation. Introducing Export Jamaica, a global market intelligence and compliance gateway that connects your effort with global opportunities and makes international trade easier, safer, and more convenient for Jamaican businesses. Powered by the Jamaica Trade Board Limited, Export Jamaica is designed to position your products competitively and guide you through international trade. Find high-demand international markets. Gain access to trade analytics that guide your business decisions. Identify and engage with potential buyers. Know your costs up front. Trade confidently. And keep your exports safe and secure. Through Export Jamaica, you can discover all there is to know about exporting and grow your business sustainably.
From the processing of your goods, to packaging and shipping, to seeing your products reach international shelves and enjoyed by customers abroad, Export Jamaica provides the market intelligence and insights behind each step, helping you identify demand, understand export pathways, and unlock financial growth.
Say hello to a prosperous future. Visit tradeboard.gov.jm/Export Jamaica to sign up today. Expanding Jamaica's reach, empowering our people.
Motorists, certificates of fitness are now digital. Here's how it works. First, make your payment at TAJ inline or online. Then, take your receipt along with your vehicle to an Island Traffic Authority service hub for physical inspection. A valid email address is required to receive your digital fitness. Once the inspection is complete, your certificate number will be sent directly to your email. To access your digital certificate, visit cgds.gov.jm/fitness, enter your certificate number and the chassis number, and view your certificate online. New validity periods are here. New vehicles, 5 years. Vehicles 10 years or less, 3 years, and those older than 10, 1 year. No more paper certificates, just secure digital access anytime, anywhere. For more information, connect with us via email at info@ita.gov.jm or on social media at Island Traffic Authority.
Hey, I'm Abijah, the Rootsman. Today, I want to talk to you about something powerful. Peace. Peace isn't just the absence of conflict. It's about kindness, understanding, and respect. It starts with us. Every choice we make can build bridges or burn them. Let's choose peace in our words, our action, and our hearts. Peace begins with you. Together, we can create a brighter and safer future for everyone. Join me. Let's be that change we want to see.
Here is a real story I bring to this festivity, and I want everybody to come and listen to me. Man from Kingston come to Obey, book a young girl and him like how she stay. Her teeth kinda scatter and some out of place. Her body look good, but not in her face. Man chat her out and take her to town and buy teeth, put in her mouth. But this is the rule, the young man said, if baby I love you today. Though your mouth are for you, but your teeth are for me, girl. So if you ever cheat, you have to give me back me teeth. Your mouth are for you, bam bam. Your teeth are for me, girl. So if you ever cheat, you have to give me back me teeth. Hey, now look at how this woman ungrateful man gonna work. She invite her next bull. Long time we are telling Nancy 9 milk, but him love her so much instead with her still. Him decide to come home early one evening, and what is her heart attack almost reach him. Seems she forget all the rules that he made. Is either she foolish or just playing brave? I say your mouth are for you, but your teeth are for me, girl. So if you ever cheat on me, you have to give me back me teeth. Me say your mouth are for you, bam bam, but them teeth are for me, girl. So if you ever cheat, you have to give me back me teeth. No one ever want you until I have you. No one ever see you until I saw you. Me nah fat and fall for mangoes. So if you ever diss those teeth, you will lose. It better you try to humble yourself and stop behaving like buckle on shelf. Any man who want smile and grin with you, tell him to buy new teeth and give you, cause your mouth are for you, mama. Them teeth are for me, girl. So if you ever cheat, you better give me back me teeth. Me say your mouth are for you, bam bam. Those teeth are for me, girl. So if you ever cheat, you better give me back me teeth. Your mouth are for you, mama. Them teeth are for me, girl. So if you ever cheat, you better give me back me teeth. You can call me, take it back. Your mouth are for you, mama. Your teeth are for me, girl. So if you ever cheat, you better give me back me teeth. I saw your mouth are for you.
na 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 na. We want a peace for Jamaica. Yeah, yeah. We have to be our brother's keeper. Yeah, yeah. Jamaica live good, yeah. I make we enjoy life. What we feel safe at night. Jamaica live good. I better you and I. No say we future bright. Jamaica live good. Come together as one. I make the violence the world.
Are you an entrepreneur producing an excellent Jamaican product or service? Did you know you can earn hard currency and more significant returns by exporting? Contact the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce to help propel your business along the export lane.
Everything you can produce, the Jamaicans overseas want it. We're not going to get rich by just bringing down the debt. We're going to get rich by exporting a lot more. So grow exports, create job opportunities, drive economic growth through exports to make Jamaica a richer and much more prosperous country.
Cook it up and make we steam it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Cook it up and make we roast it. Farm fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Grow smart at the best part. Food for thought so me have to eat smart. Easy catch, fully net. A tilapia so you don't know what's next. Cook it up and make we fry it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Bring home the best in freshwater fish. High content of vitamin B3, protein and potassium. Tilapia, simple, healthy, delicious.
Do your part to prevent mosquito breeding. Mosquitoes will breed in any container that holds water.
Tightly cover water storage containers such as drums, barrels, buckets and tanks. If this cannot be done, pour cooking oil on the water surface. Punch holes in all tins, plastics and beverage boxes to prevent the collection of water before disposal. Cover all tires or fill with dirt to prevent water collection. Scrub all vases once per week to remove mosquito eggs. Use mosquito repellents to protect yourself from mosquito bites. Dispose of garbage properly by placing in plastic bags and securing properly to prevent water collection.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Jamaica, my homeland, black, gold and green. We post the festival and the food on every screen. The national dish, ackee and sawfish. Festival queen looking real stylish. Red work and polish, shine all the greatness we accomplish. We accomplish. Remember the nice rundown. Pick me a play from the background. Hurricane Melissa come and gone. Government say more babies must born. Mango, apple, and trees have the sun scenty bread basket plant up. Me nice clean country, we still left on the map. Oh, me nice clean country, Jamaica on the app. Oh yes, our nation is on to progress. That's who we are. Resilient, strong, hard-working, we raise the bar. Home sweet home, lantern, LED, Probox and Beamer take over donkey. We work together to build up Jamaica Island, you see. Island, you see. When remember the nice rundown, pick me and play from the background. Hurricane Melissa come and gone. Government say more babies must born. Mango, apple, or trees have some scenty bread basket plant up. Me nice clean country, we still left on the map. Oh, me nice clean country, Jamaica on the app. Hear the elders a laugh, watch the youths them a dance. Runners on the track, said them now look back. From the hills to the shore, island vibes galore. Reggae music get bigger, independent Jamaica. When remember the nice rundown, pick me up, play from the background. Hurricane Melissa come and gone. Government say more babies must born. Mango, apple, or trees have some scenty bread.
Jamaica on the up. Oh, me nice clean country, we still left on the map. Oh, me nice clean country, Jamaica on the up, on the up.
Overtake and bring back everything.
Bask in the awesome Word of God and the life-changing experience of fellowship. Bask in the revival time, 8 a.m. on Sundays, right here on the People's Station.
Yo, babes, why me I call you so much time and I not get you? Sorry me lick you again yesterday. Yo, me know me mess up, but I can't wear them something there road and I expect me to react. I know I'm jealous and fool and easy to lose my temper, but call me back here. Still not get tired. Hey, girl, think me have to call your phone? You know who you deal with? You think I want to lick me again next time? Eh?
It doesn't have to be this way. You can leave an abusive relationship. Just call 876-553-0372. We will help you.
I wonder who that somebody be. No, sir. Let me look for my glasses. Oh, that somebody look like right, sir. It's Lottie, walk on. Me glad for see you, right? Although things never go on for you, America, me glad to see you there.
Yes.
Lift your head high.
Yes.
Stay out of trouble.
Yes.
And you can have a fresh start back home.
All right, Mr. P. Thanks, you hear?
Let's all work together for a fresh start back home.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Jamaica, I can help you protect our citizens.
Jamaica Eye will play a part in increasing your public safety.
Jamaica Eye is part of an island-wide network of camera surveillance systems designed to increase the safety of you, our citizens. If you have a camera system outside your home or office facing a public space, log on to jamaicai.gov.jm today. Jamaica Eye, we're all connected. The Ministry of National Security, creating a safer and prosperous Jamaica.
Come again, Jamaica night, and we full of vibe. Jamaica sweet, nobody can compete. Make we have some fun, and the fun can done. We having a party, a festival party, dancing and singing, and everybody feel irie, irie, irie. So wave the flag, all over your anthem. Wave the flag, all over your anthem. Wave the flag, all over your anthem. Jamaica, where we come from. Wave the flag, wind up your body. Wave the flag, wind up your body. Wave the flag, Jamaica, where we come from. We are proud nation in the Caribbean. Sometimes we facing crisis, but as a nation we're holding strong. Jamaica, whoa, Jamaica, whoa, Jamaica, whoa, Jamaica, where we come from. Jamaica smile, Jamaica smile, Jamaica smile, Jamaica, where we come from. We are nicest people, and we want the whole world to know. Anyway, Jamaican gather, we always start out the show. So make we party, a festival party. Bring out the good vibes, make everybody feel irie, irie, irie. Make we party, festival party. Bring out the good vibes, make everybody feel nice. Jamaica, whoa, Jamaica, whoa, Jamaica, whoa, Jamaica, where we come from. Jamaica smile, Jamaica smile, Jamaica smile, your body, wave the flag. Wind up your body, wave the flag, wave the flag. Jamaica, where we come from. We are proud nation in the Caribbean. Sometimes we're facing crisis, but as a nation we're holding strong. Jamaica, whoa, Jamaica, whoa, Jamaica, whoa. Jamaica, where we come from. Jamaica, smile, Jamaica, smile, Jamaica, smile. Jamaica, where we come from. Jamaica, whoa, Jamaica, whoa, Jamaica, whoa. Jamaica, where we come from. Jamaica, smile, Jamaica, smile, Jamaica, smile. Jamaica, where we come from.
I wonder who that man be. No, sir. Let me look for my glasses. Oh, that man look like Roy, sir. It's Lottie, walk on. Me glad for see you, Roy. Although things never go on for you, America, me glad to see you there. Yes. Lift your head high.
Yes.
Stay out of trouble.
Yes.
And you can have a fresh start back home.
All right, Mr. V. Thanks, you hear?
Let's all work together for a fresh start back home.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Dengue is ordinarily a mild disease. Persons may get a fever, headache, joint and muscle pains. The illness is often resolved through rest and adequate hydration along with paracetamol to treat the accompanying fever. However, on occasions the illness can progress to severe dengue, which can result in organ failure, bleeding and severe fluid depletion that can lead to shock and even death. Therefore, it is important for persons who are experiencing fever, vomiting, severe abdominal pain, bleeding under the skin, feeling very weak, or getting confused to seek immediate attention. Let us work together to protect ourselves against dengue.
In the wild, every day is a battle. Every step can mean the difference between life and death. Witness the action Sundays at 8 p.m., Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m., and Fridays at 8 p.m. In the race of life, there's no second place.
There are those who don't think he ever existed, as if he were a figment of the imagination or a fiction created in the first century to form the basis of a new religion.
Join the truth-seeking mission. Join us for Tomorrow's World, Sundays at 9 a.m. with a rebroadcast on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5:30 a.m. right here on the People's Station.
A little jazzy now. All true Jamaicans from all around. Spread the love for the country or town. Nice song ya sweet, don't ya nice song ya sweet. Nice song ya sweet, don't ya nice song ya sweet. Nice song ya sweet, don't ya nice song ya sweet. Nice song ya sweet, don't ya nice. Jamaica a fi island. They have a new plan, love your brother work together as one. Come make we join on. Jamaica a fi island. From we a eat, nothing else can wrong. Jamaica a fi island. Every woman, every man live and love, we are one. Don't ya nice, don't ya sweet, from the beach to the street, not to mention the fruits and the food we a eat. Jamaica land no other can compete. We little but we tell her what we born unique. Don't ya nice, don't ya sweet, other country a see. Eat where we grow, we a grow where we eat. I eat make we bring the fastest athlete. Be proud of your culture, we rich and you see it. See we island. They have a new plan, love your brother work together as one. Come make we join on. Jamaica a fi we island. From we a eat, nothing else can wrong. Jamaica a fi we island. Every woman, every man live and love, we are one. Be proud, say you're black, stand out in a crowd. True born Jamaican, shout it out loud. Have life so we good, nothing sad, not allowed. Good music a play, look is a crowd. Everybody happy from papi, go to baby and happy from bus, go to cabby, from doctor to squaddy. Farmer to coffee, from starfish to aki. Jamaica a with the world roll a copy. See we island. We have a new plan, love your brother work together as one. and Jamaica a fi we island. From we a eat nothing else can wrong. Jamaica a fi we island. Every woman, every man live and love we a one. Whether black or white, we are unite. No time to waste, post our fight. Every man have a light if we make it shine bright. Hope one another and make things right. Don't ya nice, don't ya sweet. We are dance to the beat. Drink we are eat, and we feed. Snap we are tweet of the world like you see. Jamaica of the world that we feed. See we island. Me have a new plan. Love your brother work together as one. Unite, you know. Come make we join and Jamaica of the we island. From we a eat nothing else can wrong. Jamaica a fi we island. Every woman, every man live and love we a one. Jamaica a fi we island. Me have a new plan. Love your brother work together as one. Come make we join and Jamaica a fi we island. From we a eat nothing else can wrong. Jamaica a fi we island. Every woman, every man live and love we a one.
Motorists, certificates of fitness are now digital. Here's how it works. First, make your payment at TAJ inline or online. Then, take your receipt along with your vehicle to an Island Traffic Authority service hub for physical inspection. A valid email address is required to receive your digital fitness. Once the inspection is complete, your certificate number will be sent directly to your email. To access your digital certificate, visit cgds.gov.jm/fitness, enter your certificate number and the chassis number, and view your certificate online. New validity periods are here. New vehicles, 5 years. Vehicles 10 years or less, 3 years. And those older than 10, 1 year. No more paper certificates, just secure, digital access, anytime, anywhere. For more information, connect with us via email at info@ita.gov.jm or on social media at Island Traffic Authority.
Cook it up and make we steam it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Cook it up and make we roast it. Farm fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Grow smart at the best part. Food for thought so me have to eat smart. Easy catch, fully net. A tilapia so you don't know what's next. Cook it up and make we fry it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Bring home the best in freshwater fish. High content of vitamin B3, protein and potassium. Tilapia, simple, healthy, delicious.
Greet the Sabbath day with bliss and an open heart. Join the People's Station for the Andrews Memorial Seventh-day Adventist Church service every Saturday at 9 a.m. on PBCJ.
We want a piece for Jamaica.
Yo, what are you? Oh, man, none of that. No, brother, no, man, mash it back.
You see you ever play ref? Dirty game,
yeah,
no
but
play.
I like a bad game. No, I said, person who come from, brother, I want to live good, man. I want to live good, brethren. No shake on, I can play a little bad, brethren.
Really have to shake on?
Yeah, man, and no badness, brethren. Just live good, man.
Come together as one and make the violence done.
It's Friday, July 10th. In the headlines, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the Mediation Act could help curb domestic violence. In business news, Jamaica's cryptocurrency regulations to be formed. Regionally, Venezuela's earthquake health response shifting to recovery phase. And in sports, national champions headline Jamaica's Ed Murphy Classic squad. This is the Weekend News on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale.